Hello and welcome back. We're diving into a concept that dates back to the Industrial Revolution, but it is more relevant than ever. It's the 888 rule. In a world that glorifies unhealthy, toxic work behavior, we're going to explore why working more doesn't always mean achieving more. In this episode, we'll break down the 3 crucial parts to a healthy day. We'll explore the impact of burnout, and we'll discuss practical steps to reclaim your time and your energy. So whether you find yourself facing burnout or just looking to live a more healthy and intentional life, this episode is for you. All right, let's look at cultural pressure. We need to examine what everybody is facing today. You don't have to look far to gain a greater understanding of what is expected today. Just look at the culture that you see maybe on social media. You see phrases like hustle or grind. You see themes of doing more equals being more. And if you think about it, doing more just spreads your time and your energy across more areas. So you're less likely to spend time on the things that matter, the things that God has called you to be, the person that God has called you to be. And so you're actually being less effective by doing more. A better phrase would be focus on the things that really matter and find out what those items are so that you don't spend so much time spreading yourself thin on things that really won't make an impact. And third, if you really think about this doing more is being more and hustle or grind is really just a recipe for burnout and depression. All right, let's take a look at the 888 rule. This concept dates back to the Industrial Revolution when factories required their workers to work up to 16-hour days, 6 days per week. This rule was created in 1817 by a Welsh manufacturer named Robert Owen, and Owen set the goal of creating an 8-hour workday. He was famous for the phrase 8 hours labor, 8 hours recreation, and 8 hours rest. When manufacturers implemented this rule, they found that there was no drop in productivity. The 8-hour workday became the standard around 1919. Let's discuss the topic of burnout. Today, it's hard to imagine companies requiring 16-hour days for 6 days per week. As we learned in the previous section, employers saw that more work didn't increase production. In fact, it stayed the same when going from a 16-hour day to an 8-hour day. Deborah Fileta says that overwork can lead to a lack of sleep, fatigue, stress, a lack of concentration, a lack of energy and efficiency, or even mental and physical health problems. I don't need to tell you that burnout is still a real problem today. It seems that we're still learning the same lesson as Robert Owen did in 1817. I'd like to continue this discussion on burnout to highlight kind of a niche category of burnout, and that's Christian burnout. The challenge Christians face is that ministry is ongoing, and so they often mask their burnout behind their ministry. And this becomes a challenge and often a really big problem because they blur the lines between service and rest on a regular basis. They often will experience what's called empty cup syndrome. If you don't have energy yourself, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't pour out and help other people. Okay, we're going to break down the 888 rule and talk about the 3 separate categories. And we're going to begin with work. So work is whatever you do to make a living. So this could be an office job, waiting tables, physical labor, homemaking, ministry, education, and arts. This is distinct time that differs from leisure and rest. The second category in the 888 rule is leisure, and this might be a little less clear than work, but it is made up of a variety of necessary activities and self-care. Deborah points out that if your work involves mostly mental work, it might be a good idea to involve physical activity in your leisure time. So examples could be taking walks or hiking, lifting weights, or playing a sport. And then on the other hand, if you do mostly physical work for your job, including something mentally stimulating for leisure could be a benefit for you. So, something that we don't really think about as leisure, but is included here, is these necessary tasks like preparing food, doing laundry, cleaning your home, and maybe doing errands. This is a part of our leisure time. All right, let's talk about the third and last category in the 888 rule, and that is rest. Proper sleep affects our mood, judgment, learning ability, and overall bodily function. Regular rest and Sabbath help us avoid burnout and maintain overall well-being. So, what are some ways for us to prioritize our sleep? Often this is done through like evening routine tips and tricks. So, some of those could be avoiding caffeine before bed, keeping a consistent sleep schedule regardless of whether you work the next day. And you could limit your blue light exposure. You could increase your daytime sunlight exposure. Let's continue this discussion on rest. So, in the book, Deborah Fileta talks about this biblical principle called Sabbath. And in the Bible, God sets the standard with an entire day, the Sabbath, set aside for rest and recovery. The term Sabbath comes from the Hebrew word Shabbat, meaning to rest. In Mark 2:27, Jesus states that the Sabbath was made for man, emphasizing that rest is a gift meant to provide peace and quiet amidst life's chaos. Okay, let's talk about taking action, because this information is great and all, but if we don't do something with it, what's the use? So what can we do? We can inventory our 888 balance. And what this looks like is we look for any imbalances. So this could mean that you identify that you are consistently working until early morning to get more done. So your typical work day may be like 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, and then you're coming back to work maybe after dinner or after the kids have gone to bed, and you're working additional amount all the way up until early morning, which is spilling over into your rest category. You could also look or try to recognize rest-deprived behaviors. So for me, this shows up as a lack of motivation and less desire to do the things I typically enjoy. Another thing that you can do is plan for daily and long-term rest. So you could take a specific day off that you would normally work. And then for long-term rest, you could take a week, like 7 days, or you could take 2 weeks off where you're not doing your typical work routine. You could also implement a weekly rest day, such as a Sabbath. Verse for reflection, Luke 5:16. Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. All right, let's review. In this episode, we broke down the 3 crucial parts to a healthy day. We explored the impact of burnout. And last, we discussed the practical steps that we can take to reclaim our time and our energy.